Good morning, it's Friday, the 26th of June. You're watching Euronews, and this is Europe Today. Welcome to the program, I'm Stefan Grobe. Coming up, solidarity with Ukraine. The country has received 3.2 billion euros as the first disbursement under the European Union's 90 billion euro support loan. That was announced by EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Gdansk. The announcement marks a turning point in a 6-month political struggle to get the loan off the ground. We'll have Euronews editor Maria Tadeo reporting from Gdansk. Conflicting messages. The head of the United Nations Nuclear Agency signaled that Iranian nuclear enrichment sites would be visited by their inspectors, a key component in the interim deal between Washington and Tehran. But an Iranian diplomat promptly rejected this, saying such a visit can only come after a final deal, a denial that highlighted the precariousness of the ongoing talks. We'll speak to a former Iranian negotiator. Catastrophe in Venezuela. Following the devastating earthquakes in that South American country, the international community has mobilized to provide urgent humanitarian assistance. Countries from the Western Hemisphere, the European Union, and even China offered help after 2 major earthquakes struck west of Caracas. The number of victims is still unclear, but could reach hundreds, if not more. We'll get an update from the EU Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management, Hadja Labib. And what happened at the World Cup last night? I'll fill you in. But first, the Ukraine Recovery Conference. Widely viewed as Europe's biggest reconstruction project since World War II, Kiev expects to sign agreements worth more than 1.5 billion euros during the conference, with deals expected to include projects in housing, infrastructure, and regional recovery efforts. Needs are estimated at hundreds of billions of euro and span virtually every sector of the economy, from energy and transportation to defense manufacturing, industrial production, digitalization, and urban redevelopment. Euronews editor Maria Tadeo is in Gdansk and sends this report.
Well, yes, Stefan, good morning. And we're here in Poland for the second day of the Ukraine Reconstruction Conference. This is a conference that's been running now for a number of years, but in 2022 fundamentally changed, and it became very much a business conference about the reconstruction and the future business opportunities in Ukraine. The goal of this conference is to bring together investors, foreign capital, and get them to put money in Ukraine. This year, however, far from being just a business conference, has been totally eclipsed by the politics and that diplomatic spat between Poland and Ukraine. Just days before the conference started, the Polish President Nawrocki took away a medal from President Zelensky, the highest order of merit from Poland, after a military unit in Ukraine was renamed the Ukrainian Insurgent Army. For the Polish President Nawrocki, he said this was an insult, and he had damaged and hurt the memory from the Second World War of many Poles who were killed by this particular unit. The president of Ukraine then responded back, saying that this has nothing to do with the Polish people, also said that many other units had been renamed in this war, and suggested that it's being weaponized for political reasons in Poland, looking into an election next year. That meant that yesterday, Volodymyr Zelensky did not participate in this conference. He skipped the opening ceremony. There was, however, a delegation led by the Prime Minister of Ukraine. In the meantime, the Prime Minister of this country, Donald Tusk, trying to pacify both sides, saying that this is really now the moment for both Poland and Ukraine to respect each other and be mutually respectful. Nonetheless, beyond the politics, there were announcements. The European Union announced that it will now pay off about 3 billion euros from the 90 billion euro loan that Ukraine should receive from EU member states. And the United Kingdom also announced a package of 290 million pounds, mostly focused on the energy sector. And to that point, I spoke with David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and I asked him about the future relationship of the UK with the European Union when it comes to security, defense, G7, and the upcoming NATO meeting. Let's take a look. David Lammy, thank you so much for joining us on Euronews. Today, the UK is announcing a financial contribution to Ukraine, 290 million. Why make this announcement now? Is it a reflection that you believe dynamics on the battlefield are changing and Ukraine can still win it?
As you know, the United Kingdom has stood with Ukraine right from the beginning. And we pledged some time ago that for every year this war continues, we will be with Ukraine politically, economically, and militarily. Our announcement today, of course, comes on the back of successes on the battlefield, a strong and good G7, which was a strong statement from the United States as well as European partners on the situation, and a desire to support Ukraine until we get that peace.
And, sir, you mentioned the G7. There was a statement with language that objectively was much stronger than a lot of people believe would end up in the declaration. And there's also a form of unanimity now with the United States seemingly also endorsing the language. Do you get a sense that both the UK and the Europeans, you've managed to sway the US president, and now he agrees with you? Ukraine is in better shape than it seemed at the start of the year.
I think we'll see in NATO in the coming weeks that the United States is seeing Europeans step up in terms of our commitments to defense and to spend across Europe. I think we must recognize the progress that we're seeing from Ukraine on the battlefield. We also see in Russia recession beginning to bite, a huge casualty loss now of soldiers, well over 1 million dying. And so I think we also recognize that this is the moment to keep Ukraine in the fight, to increase our suppression, if you like, of what the Russians are doing, and to support Ukraine to the very end.
And you have one of the best intelligence services in the world, so you would know what those raids on the ground look like. But I have to ask you on the sanctions front, because that was also meaningful coming out of the G7, the idea that sanctions would get tighter. There was a concern because of the energy crisis that there could be relief on Russian energy. Is that changing? Are you making plans to really go rough again on the sanctions with the rest of the G7?
We're really clear. We have ramped up our sanctions. You saw also the interdiction from the UK of the Russian shadow fleet just a few weeks ago. Our 6 package of sanctions, more to come. I was very clear when I was Foreign Secretary that we would continue to bear down on Russian aggression, Russian money, dirty money that's financing this war. And we're really pleased that our European partners continue to do that as well. And we have also seen, I think, since the elections in Hungary, a more united front right across Europe.
Certainly on the sanctions, you mentioned NATO. The summit is really around the corner. Can you carry that momentum into Ankara, or do you worry there's a scenario too in which the president will say, you didn't really help in Iran, I'm not going to help any further?
I think that we will see that momentum into Ankara. And look, I think it is important to recognize that European bases were being used, certainly here in Poland, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, to support efforts in the Strait of Hormuz. We've had the coalition of the willing as well that the UK and France have sponsored once the war is fully over and we've seen demining in the Strait of Hormuz. So I think for all of those reasons, I expect to see a successful NATO conference.
So you don't see possible backlash. And just a final question. Of course, the UK is now in a moment of transition politically. There will be a new prime minister. Is there a concern, or was there a message that you gave to your European and Ukrainian allies that the fundamentals of foreign policy of the United Kingdom will not change when it comes to security, when it comes to Ukraine?
There's absolutely no question of a change in foreign policy. We have remained committed to Ukraine through successive governments, and that will continue. And we have been absolutely clear, reconnected with the global community, a European reset. All of that continues despite...
There's no rupture. That was your message.
Rupture is not a word that's ever been... I think that was used by the Canadians. It's certainly not been used by the UK.
So you will maintain that line. David Lammy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Maria Tadeo there reporting from Gdansk. Thank you very much. Now, technical talks between the US and Iran are expected to resume in Geneva next week, designed to reach a permanent deal to end the war. The negotiations are expected to focus on Iran's nuclear program. Our correspondent, mlrd Jones, talked to a former spokesman for Iran's nuclear negotiating team, Sayed Hossein Mousavian, and started by asking him whether the talks are really an opportunity to open a new chapter in the relationship between the US and Iran.
Whether I see opportunity or not, I think this is perhaps the most important opportunity Iran and the US they have because of two issues. First issue is that now they are negotiating at the very, very high level, actually the second rank of the two countries. And the second important issue is that they have direct negotiations, not only on nuclear, but on broader regional issues.
On the nuclear issue specifically, it's likely to become a core issue in these talks. Do you believe Iranian negotiators will come to the table ready to make compromises with flexibility? For example, do you believe they'll allow inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency to come on site immediately on Iranian nuclear sites?
First of all, with JCPOA, Iran practically showed its readiness. IAEA had full access, and for 3 years, IAEA repeatedly was able to say Iranian nuclear program is peaceful. Therefore, Iran already showed such a goodwill. Now, when you are talking about Iranian giving access to the IAEA, to Iranian nuclear sites, yes, I believe they will give. But the problem is not on the Iranian side. This is for the first time during the history of non-proliferation. Two nuclear powers, they have attacked a non-nuclear weapon state facilities under the safeguard agreement between Iran and the IAEA. IAEA, Atomic Energy Agency, does not have any protocol to inspect the bombed nuclear facilities. I think first Iran should agree, I believe they would agree, and then the IAEA would have to have an official protocol enabling them to go to visit the bombed nuclear facilities.
There is also a very complex regional picture. Do you expect Iran to try and tie the fate of Lebanon to this broader deal? And do you expect the US to be receptive to that?
I think if there is going to be a broad, sustainable deal, Iran and the US negotiators, they will have to agree on three major issues, regional issues. One would be between Iran and the US, bilateral and regional. The second should be about Iran and the US Arab allies in the region, the Persian Gulf, the stability of energy, the Strait of Hormuz, about maritime security in the Persian Gulf. And the third is about Iran and Israel. I think the US is in good position to be a mediator for Iran and Israel to end decades of mutual security, military, existential threats.
mlrd Jones speaking to Sayed Hossein Mousavian. And now to the horrifying earthquakes that shook Venezuela yesterday. More than 10,000 people have been reported missing after the area around the capital Caracas was hit by two strong horror movie tremors, as one witness described it. Experts are predicting the number of people killed will rise. Residents posted videos of collapsing buildings and screaming survivors ducking for cover. The international community acted immediately and offered wide-ranging assistance. For more on this, let's bring in the EU Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management, Hadja Labib, who joins us from Budapest. Good morning, Commissioner. It's great to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Do you have a sense of the magnitude of the disaster yet? And what is the EU doing to help in terms of money and in terms of manpower?
Yeah, We have proactively entered in contact with the Venezuelan authorities to propose our humanitarian aid. You have to know that we are already on the ground with our partners, with our office, and so we activate our Copernicus satellite to assess the magnitude of the damages. It's still monitoring, and we were already with our humanitarian aid providing 52 million of humanitarian support for only this year. And of course, when the back-to-back earthquakes happened, we proposed to step up our humanitarian aid. 7 countries have already responded with search and rescue team. So Venezuela activated our solidarity, European solidarity mechanism, which is the civil protection mechanism. Spain, Italy, Czech Republic, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Germany and France proposed search and rescue teams, mobile telecommunication advices and so on. So we are already on the ground, and many countries are ready to step up.
Commissioner, Venezuela has faced years of economic and political turmoil. How do those existing vulnerabilities complicate the delivery of humanitarian aid and the assessment of needs on the ground?
Yeah, exactly. That's the situation that we are facing today in Venezuela. You have to know that more than 7 million people depend on humanitarian aid. And so the situation was already severe. And we are monitoring the situation right now and expecting some heavy rains and turmoil. And that's why we are really on a hurry to save as many lives as we can. That's why our first response were search and rescue team, because we need to remove the concrete and to save as much as life as we can. In this kind of situation, every minute counts. But as you rightly say, the situation, the economic situation and humanitarian situation was already dramatic.
All right. EU Commissioner Hadja Labib on EU assistance for Venezuela. Thank you so much for your time this morning, madam. The extreme heat that is baking Europe these days is melting national records. France and Belgium endured their hottest day since records began. Britain and Spain hit new records for any day in June. Experts speak about a heat dome-driven furnace for the second time in 2 months. Now, heat domes are persistent high-pressure systems which act like a lid on a pot, trapping hot air and pushing it downward. How do people cope with the sweltering heat? Adnan Leal braced the temperatures and looked around in Brussels.
Extreme heat has placed parts of Belgium on red alert. It's too much warm, with temperatures reaching up to 40 degrees. Are you prepared to survive 40 degrees? In Brussels, the alert is at the second highest level, and schools are adapting their activities to cope with the heat wave. But how are people outside coping with it?
I bought myself a lighter clothes.
Under the trees, and then we have the fan, very nice.
Drinking a lot of water.
Experts say taking small precautions can already make a big difference.
Heat-related mortality has gone up 30% in the last 20 years in Europe. We can reduce that mortality by developing habits and actions at the personal level. There is a clear need to develop strategies to cope with these extremes. They have the potential to kill us. Temperatures are going up and we continue to go up. Even if we were to stop emission tomorrow, which we are not, records breaking shouldn't be a breaking news, because in a sense it's a natural consequence of the fact that the world is warming up.
Adnan Leal reporting from Brussels. And now the World Cup with the second final match day of the group stage. Ecuador stunned already qualified Germany with a 2-1 comeback win to qualify for the knockout stages. Germany scored after 100 seconds, but then it was game over for the four-time champion. An eye-popping victory for Ecuador that didn't score a single goal in their first 2 matches. In the other game of Group E, Ivory Coast beat Curaçao 2-0 and booked their ticket for the next round. In Group F, the Netherlands sealed a comfortable 3-1 victory against Tunisia, cruising to the knockout phase. Oranje's victory means they're facing Morocco on Tuesday, which promises to be a shocker. For Tunisia, it was time to leave the big stage after a spirited performance in defeat. In the other game of that group, Japan finished second behind the Netherlands after a 2-2 draw against Sweden, which scored a second-half stunner to secure a last 32 spot as they came from behind to earn a point against Japan. Then in Group D, Turkey against the United States, a game about nothing. The Turks were already eliminated and Americans already qualified. Yet Turkey beat the US 3-2, finishing a disappointing World Cup on a somewhat positive note. And the Americans' dream might be a bit broken as they are back on planet Earth. Finally, Paraguay versus Australia, 0-0. Do you have anything else to say on this? No. Australia advances, Paraguay maybe. 6 games on the menu tonight and early tomorrow morning, among them the shocker Norway-France, Uruguay against Spain, and New Zealand versus Belgium. That does it for us today. Thanks for joining us this morning. If you want to continue the conversation, send us your feedback via email to europetoday@euronews.com. For all the latest news of the day, stay tuned to Euronews and euronews.com. I'm Stefan Grobe. Take care and see you soon.